Thomas Tuchel promised a Premier League style of football on the international stage, and his England team absolutely delivered. We're also going to discuss why Portugal have to drop Cristiano Ronaldo if they're to succeed at this World Cup. All of that coming up on today's World Cup show. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate all the love and support. We are back with what's a bit of an England special. England got off to a perfect start to their World Cup campaign. They defeated Croatia by 4-2. And although there were patches in the game where you would argue England's performance wasn't quite up to scratch, wasn't quite up to speed, the way they came out in the second half was incredible. Thomas Tuchel's been talking loads in the build-up to this tournament about the want and the ambition to go out in this World Cup and play a Premier League style of football. Now, people laughed at me a little while ago when on my main podcast, I said that you're going to see Arteta ball to a degree at the World Cup. What did that mean? That meant playing with a real physicality, playing with a real intensity. That meant a focus on set pieces. That meant basically England playing to their strengths. And I think we saw that yesterday, and hence why England, in the end, were very comfortable winners over a useful Croatian side. Now, Thomas Tuchel had a few decisions to make in terms of his team selection. Noni Madueke started on the right-hand side. Bukayo Saka still being taken care of, still being looked after, given that he's carrying an Achilles problem. He did get on later in the game and had an impact too, which we'll come on to in a bit. Jude Bellingham was preferred in the number 10 role to Morgan Rogers, which, you know, some people would disagree with that decision, but I think Jude Bellingham justified his selection with England's third goal. But also Jude Bellingham does have that pedigree. He does have that kind of aura about him, and he does have an ability to produce clutch moments when England need them most. So no real surprise that Thomas Tuchel went down that route. England started the game, I thought, okay. They got themselves a penalty early on in the game, an uncharacteristically bad mistake from Luka Modric, who just had no idea that Noni Madueke was coming over his shoulder. Look, credit to the Arsenal man because he was sharp. He was desperate to try and get on the end of it, and he ends up drawing a foul out of a very clever and very experienced player. And England get the opportunity to get off to a good start. Harry Kane steps up, little stutter in the run-up. Goalkeeper dives down to his left and makes the save. But the goalkeeper was off of his line by the time he made the save by quite some distance. And there was some encroachment in the penalty area, which meant that the referee, Clement Turpin, said the penalty was to be retaken. And Harry Kane wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. He went down that same side of the goal, but this time he dispatched it well and he put England in front. And at that point, you're thinking, well, you're looking at this Croatian side. It's not as inspiring as it was in years gone by. And you're thinking England are well on their way. But that wasn't to be the case. They conceded an equalizing goal, a wonderful Croatian move, which culminated in a really good strike from the edge of the box, which Jordan Pickford just could not do anything about. I'm going to just bear with me a second. There we go. I got it in front of me. Baturina with an effort from the edge of the box, and Pickford, as I say, could not keep it out. The ball ended up in the back of the net, and it was 1-1. England then, I think, went into a little bit of a kind of strange mode. It felt like they weren't quite sure how to then approach the game. They weren't quite sure what was to come next. They forced a couple of set pieces, and Declan Rice, whose set piece delivery for Arsenal for quite some time now has been outstanding, was the man on corner duty, even from the right-hand side. Now, for Arsenal, he always takes them from the left-hand side, but for England, he was tasked with providing an out-swinging delivery from England's right-hand side. He whips it into the box, and somehow Harry Kane was in acres of space and was able to power ahead of home and put England back in front. That was 3 minutes before halftime, and you're thinking, England, brilliant. They've restored their lead. They've got over the little wobble. They've got over the shell shock of conceding that very good Croatian goal. But the half wasn't done yet, and Musa equalized for a second time, meaning that Croatia went in at the break 2-2 with England. Now, this goal was a phenomenal goal. The finish from Musa is smart. It's clever. The way he opens up his boot and just steers it past Pickford is excellent. But this goal is all about Ivan Perisic. Wonderful run from outside to in, and then the most perfect cushioned header into Musa's path for him to just open up his boot and, as I say, steer it into the back of the net. And at that point, you're thinking, Croatia haven't done that much, but out of nowhere, they've produced two moments of brilliance. It's 2-2. England have got quite the game on their hands. Then it all changed. England went in at halftime. I must admit, I didn't think their performance in the first half was as bad as clearly Thomas Tuchel felt it was. Thomas Tuchel laid into them. He ripped them a new one behind the scenes. And we had a flash interview from one of his assistant coaches during halftime, which normally I listen to those things and I think, well, what are they actually going to say? What are they actually going to give us here in terms of insight? But he talked very openly and very honestly about why England needed to improve, what had been said in the dressing room, not quite word for word, but he gave us a gist of the kind of conversation that had just gone on. And you're listening to that and you're thinking, wow, like England are being held to really high standards here, clearly. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that's a PR masterclass from Thomas Tuchel, putting one of his coaches in front of the media to kind of galvanize the fans, to show the fans that Thomas Tuchel's not taking any crap, that Thomas Tuchel's standards are very high. They must be adhered to at all times. And England went out in that second half and they played with a freedom. They played with an intensity. They played with a desire that I haven't seen from an England side for years and years and years, possibly never. Okay. This second half performance from England was the most I've ever enjoyed watching England play in my 36 years on planet Earth. Right? That's honestly how I felt about that second half. Bellingham comes out, lovely ball into the channel. Bellingham gets into a good position. Angles against him, by the way, but he manages to find the bottom corner. Bang, England back in front. And from then on, they were relentless. They were knocking and knocking and knocking at that Croatian door relentlessly. And somehow they didn't find the fourth goal until really, really late on in the game. People talked about lots of candidates for man of the match from the England perspective. I think Livakovic, the Croatian goalkeeper, has got to be in with a shout of winning that prize as well because he made some outstanding saves. Just when England maybe started to lose a little bit of energy and the intensity levels dropped a little bit, they were able to make changes. Some concern over the way that Declan Rice left the pitch, but Thomas Tuchel made it clear that he wasn't taking any risks with him. But when you can bring on Rodgers, Rashford and Saka as a trio from the bench and just refresh things and give yourself that running power against a team that now has to come out and take the game to you, that's a pretty strong position to be in. And, England reaped the rewards of that. Saka, excellent when he came on, some really clever touches, really clever bits of play, clearly on the same wavelength as Marcus Rashford, who scored England's fourth goal, took it brilliantly and might have scored a fifth as well, had another move involving him and Bukayo Saka gone ever so slightly differently. But I just think, look, brilliant second half performance, deserved win, and England are on their way to the knockout stages, right? It's fair to say. But what really took me aback was A, the transparency that we got at halftime, B, the difference and the contrast in the two performances, first half versus second half. But more than that was probably the way that I heard the England players post-match talk about Thomas Tuchel. They are in complete awe of this manager. They know that this guy is a level above anything they've had at international level before. And the speech, as it was called, that he gave during halftime clearly galvanized, clearly was successful in terms of firing people up and motivating. And you just look at it and you think it's a really talented group. There's a lot of players, there's a lot of options, there's a lot of tactical flexibility. Plus, for the first time, maybe ever, England have got a manager that is really and truly at the top level tactically. That could be the difference. England will go far in this World Cup. Mark my words. And it's not just about the players. It's about the manager as well. It's about his ability to motivate. He has handled this England job so far so well. Even when people were trying to create controversies, i.e. when Jude Bellingham was left out of camps because he wasn't fully fit, Thomas Tuchel's done a great job of pouring cold water on all of that nonsense. We used to talk about a togetherness and a unity under Gareth Southgate. And now I wonder if it was just because the example that we were holding it up to, i.e. the England team of the previous generation, was so fractured and so divided that we thought that group was really together. I'm not saying they weren't, But this feels like togetherness. This feels like people all singing from the same hymn sheet. And with this guy at the helm, and there were a lot of people that didn't want him because he's a German coach, England will go far. They might even win the thing. Mark my words. Moving on, Portugal must drop Cristiano Ronaldo if they're going to succeed at this World Cup. I'm sorry, he's been a great player for a number of years. He's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time. But right now, Portugal are suffering from having Cristiano Ronaldo leading the line. I'm sorry, there'll be a lot of Ronaldo fans out there that don't want to hear this. There'll be Portugal fans that don't want to hear this. But that is the truth, and everybody can see it. Lionel Messi, the night before, turned out for Argentina, had everybody playing for him, running for him, and platforming his talents. But he still had to deliver, and he did. He scored a hat-trick for Argentina in their win over Algeria. And going into yesterday's game between Portugal and the DR Congo, there was a lot of people that were wondering, kind of expecting Cristiano Ronaldo to step up and do something similar. Only that wasn't the case. Cristiano Ronaldo up front was static. He didn't link play together. Thierry Henry did a really interesting piece on this where he said, if you're going to play as the 9, you have to act like a 9. Your movement has to be like that of a 9. And it just wasn't. And when he did get a couple of half chances, he didn't have the ability on the day to put those away. That's not to downplay his finishing capabilities, because we've all seen throughout his career that is there. But there's this obsession with finding a way to get Cristiano Ronaldo into the team. And I've said this for a few tournaments now, and I just wish there was a Portuguese manager out there that had the cojones to go, this does not work. Cristiano, from 60 minutes onwards, when the opposition are tired, when the game's a little bit stretched, you can come on and you can give us something. You can win us a match. You can score us a clutch goal when we really need it, because you've done that throughout your career. But to still be starting with Cristiano Ronaldo in 2026, when you've got as much talent as the Portuguese have, is just baffling to me. It really, really is. And I know people would argue that they don't really have in this group an outstanding centre forward, for example. But when you look on the bench, there's so many alternative solutions. Joao Felix hasn't been great of late. I understand that. But Gonzalo Ramos could do the job. You could use Rafael Leao through the middle. You could use Bruno Fernandes as a false 9. There's so many alternatives available to Roberto Martinez, yet he appears to be fearful of dropping Cristiano Ronaldo. And I promise you, if he doesn't, that is going to cost Portugal in this tournament. It's not a knee-jerk opinion that I've formulated based on what we saw in one instance and in one game. This is something I've believed for a while. Cristiano Ronaldo should not be leading the line for Portugal anymore. They were conservative in their approach at times. I thought Portugal, DR Congo did a really good defensive job. And, I think they made it so that a Portuguese side, stacked with talent, by the way, Vitinha, João Neves and Bruno Fernandes, plus Bernardo Silva in that midfield, and they still couldn't unlock them in the way they wanted to. But they did take the lead through João Neves. And at that point, you thought, well, they're on their way. But Johan Visser ghosted into the penalty area and scored a powerful header to make it 1-1 right on the stroke of half-time. And from then on, Portugal never looked like going on and winning it. DR Congo had some wonderful counter-attacking opportunities that they didn't make the most of. Unfortunately for them, they just didn't have the quality to capitalize. Bakambu missed a handful of chances that he really ought to have done better with. But I think although, I focused on Ronaldo and how, he is a part of Portugal's struggles at the moment, I think you've got to give all the praise in the world to this DR Congo side. What a result for them. Johan Visser was sensational, along with that back 5 as well. Johan Visser just gave them an outlet. He gave them something to aim at. He gave them the ability to bring the ball out from those defensive areas and relieve themselves of pressure. Wonderful, wonderful result for them. Disappointing for Portugal, but this format means that there is margin for error. So I wouldn't go overboard if I were a Portuguese fan, but I would be asking the question, does Cristiano Ronaldo still need to start up front for this Portuguese side? Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to bring you some more World Cup content, of course, over the coming days. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'll see you all soon. Until the next one, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day.